The ongoing saga with Karen and the HOA reached a particularly striking moment when she mocked an African-American lady, believing her to be merely an aide, only to be met with an immediate and undeniable lesson in respect, authority, and the consequences of arrogance. What Karen assumed would be a trivial insult quickly turned into a public demonstration of her misjudgment and the limits of her influence. The morning began at the farm, where community members, staff, and guests were gathering for routine operational inspections and farm management activities. Among the attendees was an African-American executive who had recently assumed a high-ranking leadership role within local governance. Karen, as usual, arrived with her HOA entourage, bringing with her a mix of entitlement and condescension. Believing she could assert control and belittle others, she directed dismissive comments and mocking gestures toward the executive, assuming that she would not challenge her. The situation quickly shifted as the executive calmly addressed Karen. Without aggression or haste, she identified her position, presented credentials, and articulated her authority in a manner that was both unassailable and legally binding. Karen's assumptions were immediately exposed as foolish and uninformed. The woman she mocked was far more powerful than Karen had imagined, and any attempt to interfere would carry immediate consequences. Recognizing an opportunity to teach a broader lesson, the executive coordinated a strategic response. Operational staff were instructed to follow lawful protocols, emphasizing the executive's authority over the property and ongoing activities. Surveillance systems captured every detail of Karen's behavior, ensuring that her arrogance and interference would be documented and visible to both the community and governing bodies. Karen's repeated attempts at mockery and control were rendered entirely ineffective by preparation, foresight, and lawful authority. Karen, realizing that her assumptions had been disastrously incorrect, attempted to escalate. She dialed emergency repeatedly, tried to mobilize her entourage, and demanded recognition of her perceived HOA authority. Each attempt was systematically neutralized. The executive maintained calm, controlled oversight of operations, and leveraged both her authority and strategic planning to ensure that Karen's actions had no practical effect. Observers, including neighbors and officials, witnessed the contrast between Karen's panic and the executive's poised control. Throughout the day, Karen's repeated miscalculations became increasingly visible. Her attempts to assert dominance over the executive, and by extension the farm operations, were blocked at every turn. Access points, operational areas, and interactions were managed with precision to highlight the consequences of intrusion and misjudgment. Karen's arrogance, combined with her failure to recognize authority, had created a situation in which her public humiliation was inevitable. By afternoon, the executive had fully restored control of the farm's operations. Karen's mockery had been neutralized, and her repeated interference had resulted in operational disruption for her HOA. The public lesson was unmistakable. Arrogance, condescension, and interference without knowledge or preparation are met with immediate and unavoidable consequences. Observers noted that lawful authority and strategic foresight consistently prevail over ignorance and entitlement. To ensure the lesson endured, additional measures were implemented. Operational boundaries were reinforced, surveillance enhanced, and protocols updated to clearly define authority and oversight. Karen's repeated overreach had provided a vivid demonstration of the consequences of misjudgment, arrogance, and interference. By evening, the farm lay calm, fully operational, and under lawful control. Karen had retreated, humiliated, frustrated, and powerless. The public lesson was clear. Those who underestimate authority or attempt to assert control without preparation and legal standing will face consequences that are precise, immediate, and unavoidable. By nightfall, the property reflected calm mastery, strategic foresight, and the inescapable results of arrogance and interference. Karen's repeated failures had left yet another chapter in the ongoing saga of law, authority, and accountability, reinforcing the principle that preparation, lawful power, and foresight always prevail over ignorance, entitlement, and misjudgment.